Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph. We'll be learning today, Miras Hashem, Daf Yud Gimel Amid Aleph. We pick up on the bottom of Yud Beis Amid Beis with a new Siman, Siman Zayin. Din levarech berachas asher yotzar kol hayoim achar hatolas mayim. The halachos that pertain to the berachah of asher yotzar, and one halacha that the Mechaber mentioned specifically in the heading of the Siman is that you make a bracha throughout the day. Whenever you use the Beis HaKisei, even if you're only using the Beis HaKisei for ketanim, for atolas mayim, for urination, still in all, you do make a bracha of asher yotzar after each use of the facilities. Now, we name that on as a davar pashut. It is not a davar pashut at all. It's the subject of several different machlokesin amongst the Rishonim. However, that is the way we paskin, and it's interesting, the Mechaber chooses to mention that halacha specifically in the heading of the Siman, even though that is certainly not the only halacha mentioned in the Siman. Ubay dal seifim, we have here 4 seifim. Says the Mechaber in Sif Aleph, Kol hayoim kisha'isa tzrachav. Throughout the day, whenever you use the facilities, bein ketanim, bein gedolim, whether you're going for ketanim or gedolim, urination or defecation, mevarich asher yotzar, each time you have to recite the berachah of asher yotzar, v'loi al netilas yadayim. However, even though you're going to be washing your hands after using the facilities, you will not recite the berachah of al netilas yadayim. So you're going to wash your hands. Certainly after gedolim, there's a chiyuv of washing the hands. The chiyuv of washing the hands after ketanim is less clear, but we're going to discuss that later on in the Siman. But nevertheless, the assumption is that you're going to wash your hands both after ketanim, both after gedolim. However, you will not make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. And the Mechaber says this is true. Af im roitza lilmaid oil hispalal miyad. This is true even if you want to go right away and go daven. Even so, you're not going to have to make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. Now, there's a greater chiddush in that, because let's remember, we just got through a whole Siman, really more than one Siman, discussing al netilas yadayim, and we learned the shita of the Rush, that one of the primary reasons we wash our hands in the morning is because overnight, yadayim askani yoisheim, your hands may or certainly have touched an unclean area of the body. Therefore, right now you have yadav mitunafais, your hands are unclean, and therefore before Kriya Shema, before Shemona Esrei, you must wash your hands in preparation of Kriya Shema and Tefillah. Now, that would seem to apply later on during the day as well. Let's say you're going to daven mincha and you use the Beis HaKisei right before mincha, so you have yadayim mitunafais, right? You would think that you're going to go wash your hand according to the Rush. You would seem to need a bracha of al netilas yadayim, and that is very likely true, that according to the Rush you do have a chiyuv to make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. However, that is not the way we paskin. We paskin that you only make the bracha of al netilas yadayim once, and that is in the morning when you get up, when we have both the reason of the Rush and the Rashba. In the morning, you're nasik kibriyah chadasha, so we wash your hands in the morning, and we make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. But later on during the day, while we do have to wash our hands, we do not recite the bracha of al netilas yadayim over that washing of the hands. And we'll see a bir halacha that will spell that out pretty clearly. But in any case, so that is what the Mechaber has said over here so far. So the Mechaber has told us the bracha of asher yotzar, you make it throughout the day. Whenever you use the facilities, whether ketanim, whether gedolim, you make a bracha of asher yotzar each time. And even though you're going to wash your hands, and even though you might be going directly to daven or to learn Torah, you wash your hands, but you do not make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. We might as well finish off the sif because we have a Ramah that just adds to that. Says the Ramah Haga, hayu yadav miluchlachos, even if your hands are certainly unclean. For example, sheshivshesh bahen, you used your hands to wipe yourself. So you used your hands to wipe, you definitely touched an unclean area of the body, it's very easy to understand that your hands might mamish be dirty. Still in all, afilu haki, says the Ramah, einoi mevarech al netilas yadayim. You are not going to make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. You must wash, but you're not going to make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. Okay, now let's go back to Yud Beis Amud Beis, and let's see the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Aleph. Very, very interesting Mishnah Berurah. Says the Chavetz Chaim. So the Chavetz Chaim is going to discuss over here what happens if somebody used the facilities and then for whatever reason he did not make an Asher Yotzar right after he came out. Unfortunately, this is a bigger problem nowadays than it used to be, I think. People are so attached to their cell phones, and the phone has such a command over people. It's like when that phone rings, it doesn't matter what they're doing. They might be learning, they might be davening, they might be talking to their spouse, whatever it is. That phone rings, that phone buzzes, an email came in, a text message came in, a WhatsApp came in, a phone call. It's like there's like a chiv daraisa. You have to drop everything and answer the phone. And I've seen very often, you see somebody come out of the basic Kisei, he's holding the ringing phone. You know, he comes out of the basic Kisei, right away he's on the phone. What happened to the berachah of Asher Yotzar? Who do you have a chiv to first? The phone or to Bari Olam? So people come out, right away, they must answer the phone. Then they answer the phone. Now they don't stand there while they talk. They answer the phone, ready to start to walk away. Let's say they're on the phone for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes. Are they going to remember to make an Asher Yotzar? So unfortunately, I think nowadays this halacha is even more negeya, where people are forgetting to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar. Ach and vei. People have health problems. People are definitely concerned about their health. The bracha of Asher Yotzar, we've said, a proper recitation of the bracha of Asher Yotzar with kavana is a protection for your health and well-being. Don't underestimate the bracha of Asher Yotzar. Don't treat the bracha of Asher Yotzar lightly. Now, I'm not saying you should only do it because of the segula for good health. It's a chiyuv. It's a chiyuv to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar. Don't forget to make your bracha of Asher Yotzar. Take the minute that it takes to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar properly. But in any case, what happens if for some reason somebody forgot to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar? Can he make the bracha of Asher Yotzar later? How much later can he make the bracha of Asher Yotzar? So let's do just a quick, shallow little dive into the halachos of brachas. We know that when it comes to a bracha of shvach v'hidah to the Rebbeinu Shalom, a prime example would be the brachas that you make on thunder and lightning. Right? You hear thunder, you see lightning, you're going to go make a bracha. How much time do you have to make that bracha? So the halacha is that you're supposed to make that bracha b'toich kedei dibur. What's toich kedei dibur? The amount of time it takes to say Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Yomeiri. That's toich kedei dibur. So you hear thunder, you have the amount of time of toich kedei dibur to make the bracha on thunder. Why is that? Because you heard thunder, right? The chiyuv of the bracha was chal on you. You're giving shavach v'hidah to the Rebbeinu Shalom. You have to do it b'toich kedei dibur of when you experienced the thing that you're giving shavach v'hidah to the Rebbeinu Shalom for. Once toich kedei dibur passes, you lost the opportunity to make the bracha. Now the bracha of Asher Yotzar is also a brachas hashvach. It's a bracha thanking the Rebbeinu Shalom for the wonders of the human body and for your good health and for the workings of the human body. There definitely would be room to think that perhaps here also you only have the time span of toich kedei dibur to make the bracha. So maybe you use the Beis HaKisei, now you have up to toich kedei dibur to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar. Now we're going to see in the Chavetz Chaim not that way. It says the Mishnah Berurah is Katan Aleph. You have to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar after each time you use the facilities. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Va'afilu im nimshach zman gadol achar asiyas hatzrachim. Even if a long time has passed from the time that you used the facilities till when now you're ready to make the Asher Yotzar. Maybe you forgot, and now you just remembered. You just remembered an hour ago. I went to the Beis HaKisei, and I got busy on the phone, and I forgot to make an Asher Yotzar. So says the Chavetz Chaim, Afilu im nimshach zman gadol achar asiyas hatzrachim. Even if a long time has passed from after the time that you used the facilities, afilu hachi chayiv levarich. Still and all, you still have a chiyuv to make a bracha. Now, why is that? Why is this berachah hashvach different than any other one? So, if you take a look at the Ice Cotton Aleph for the Shar Hatzion, the Chavetz Chaim brings this halacha down from the Pri Megadim in the Eshel Avram. And if you take a look at the Pri Megadim, what the Pri Megadim says is the bracha of Asher Yotzar Bal Karchai is different than, let's say, the bracha on thunder. Why? Because the bracha of Asher Yotzar has an interesting variable to it. And that is that you typically cannot make the bracha of Asher Yotzar Toich Kidei Dibur. Why? Because you use the Beis HaKisei, and now before you're going to make a bracha, you have to wash your hands. Now, us, we live in the lap of luxury, right? You use the Beis HaKisei, and right away there's running water there. Big deal, you wash your hands right away. Truth is, even with the running water in the facilities that we have, it's still, Toich Kidei Dibur is very short. But especially in days gone by, where you had to go get water, wasn't so simple, you didn't have the faucet right there and the sink right there, to say that you're going to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar Toich Kidei Dibur of the completion of using the facilities is a stretch. So the Pri Megadim says it is intrinsic in the requirement to make the bracha of Asher Yotzar that you are not going to make it Toich Kidei Dibur of when you use the facilities. Therefore, says the Pri Megadim, since the only time boundary that we know when it comes to berachas hashvach is Toich Kidei Dibur, and Toich Kidei Dibur is not practicable by the bracha of Asher Yotzar, it comes out that it's not negeah. By the bracha of Asher Yotzar, you have more than Toich Kidei Dibur. Okay, now the question becomes, okay, you have more. How much time do you have? So we're not going to assign an arbitrary time limit to it. When you use the facilities, you have a chiyuv to make a berachah of Asher Yotzar. We're not going to arbitrarily throw a time limit on it and say, okay, the time limit that we know of Toich Kidei Dibur doesn't seem to apply here. So we'll make an arbitrary one, 5 minutes. Toich Kidei Achilas Pras. We're not just going to throw an arbitrary time limit on it. So now we have to figure out, is there a time limit? Is there any kind of limit? Is there any kind of time limit? So let's go further in the Chavetz Chaim here, a nice cut and aleph. Says the Chavetz Chaim, how about V'im loy birech Asher Yotzar ad sheroitza lahato mayim shenis? What happens if you neglected to make the Asher Yotzar and you don't realize that you neglected to make the Asher Yotzar until you need the Beis HaKisei again? Now, we can imagine that happening. Somebody used the Beis HaKisei, and like I said, unfortunately, he came out and he dived right away into a phone call. Now he's busy for the next hour and a half. Now, an hour and a half later, he needs the Beis HaKisei again. He walks over to the Beis HaKisei, and that jogs his memory. And he says, oy vey, I came out of the Beis HaKisei last time. I started yentiving on the phone right away, and I never made an Asher Yotzar. Oh, but now, there's an interesting shailos. He remembers now that he has to make an Asher Yotzar on the previous time that he used the Beis HaKisei, but right now he has the need to use the Beis HaKisei again. So this is what the Mishnah Berurah says here. V'im loy birech Asher Yotzar. If he failed to make the berachah of Asher Yotzar, ad sheroitza lahato mayim shenis, until such time as he has the need to use the Beis HaKisei again, now for a second time, what should he do? Could he make an Asher Yotzar now, before he goes in to use the Beis HaKisei? Use the Beis HaKisei a second time and then come out and make another Asher Yotzar? Should he try to pater both uses of the facilities with one Asher Yotzar? So don't make an Asher Yotzar now. Go use the facilities. Come back out. Make one Asher Yotzar to cover both. What should he do? How should he comport himself? Says the Mishnah Berurah, he brings down a machlokes. Says the Mishnah Berurah, das a Pri Megadim. It's the opinion of the Pri Megadim. De mikaydim sheyatil before he goes to use the facilities for a second time, Yevarich asher yotzar al HaTorah harishana. He should make an asher yotzar on the earlier use of the facilities. Reasons the Pri Megadim says, when you used the facilities the first time, you got a chiyuv to make a berachah of asher yotzar. The chiyuv of the berachah of asher yotzar was chal on you as soon as you used the facilities the first time. Now you have not yet discharged that chiyuv. What are you going to do? You're going to use the facilities now a second time and try to make one asher yotzar on both? That doesn't seem to work. Why? Well, I can give you a svar. This is not in the words of the Pri Megadim. One reason is the second use of the facilities. Is that a continuation of the first one? Is this comparable, let's say, to somebody who's eating a meal? So he eats, then he stops, he schmoozes for half an hour, then he eats again, and he patters up all of the eating with one berachah achrona. Over there, it's one course of eating. Over here, you used the facilities. You no longer have the need to use the facilities. When you came out, you were done. So you're done. You have a chiyuv to make a berachah of asher yotzar. The next time that you needed the facilities, that's a whole new deal. Now you need to use the facilities again. Then when you use the facilities a second time, you're getting a new chiyuv to make a berachah of asher yotzar. So what are you going to do? You're going to patter up both with one asher yotzar? How are you going to do that? Indeed, we're going to see later in the Siman and Sif Gimel that the Mechaber holds if somebody uses the facilities once and he's done, and then he uses the facilities again a second time and he has not yet made an asher yotzar on the first one, he makes two asher yotzars. Imagine that. He's going to make two berachas of asher yotzar after using the facilities the second time. What's very clear is each use of the facilities generates its own chiyuv to make a berachah of asher yotzar. So says the Pri Megadim, if you used the facilities and you failed to make a berachah of asher yotzar, and now you realize when you need to use the facilities a second time, stop, first make an asher yotzar to discharge your original chiyuv, then go use the facilities a second time, and then it would seem, Pri Megadim, again, it doesn't say that here, and then make obviously you have to make a second asher yotzar, then make a second asher yotzar after the second use of the facilities. So again, Dasa Pri Megadim, says the Chavetz Chaim, Dimikoidim sheyatil, before you use the facilities the second time, Yevarach asher yotzar al HaTorah harishana. First, make an asher yotzar on the earlier use of the facilities and discharge your earlier chiyuv. Then use the basic kisi a second time, and you'll make a second asher yotzar. That's the sheet of the Pri Megadim. Aval, however, b'shari tshuva, in the shari tshuva hiskim, b'shem kama achroinim, the shari tshuva concludes, and he quotes this from many achroinim, D'im nizkar la'achar shehischa loy taiva, if you remember that you failed to make an earlier asher yotzar, but you only remember after you have the need to use the facilities again, shuv lo yavarich. You no longer make an asher yotzar on that earlier use of the facilities, ayin sham. Now, one of the rationales of the shari tshuva is very interesting and I think very simple to understand. Says the shari tshuva, a person went ahead and he used the facilities. Before he used the facilities, he had an urge to use the facilities, which very often is uncomfortable. Now he used the facilities. When he comes back out, what do we call it? Relieving yourself. When he comes out of the basic kisi, he's relieved. He feels better. Now he has a chiyuv to make a berachah of asher yotzar. It's a berachas hashvach to thank the Rabbanu Shalom for these wondrous workings of the human body. Says the shari tshuva, if you use the facilities once, you failed to make the berachah of asher yotzar, and you only remember when you have the need to use the facilities again, you can no longer make a berachah on the earlier use of the facilities because all of the hana, all of the benefit from the earlier use of the facilities is gone. It's all batal u'mavotal. You need the facilities again. So how can you make an asher yotzar now on that earlier use of the facilities? Says the shari tshuva, you know what this is similar to? This is similar to somebody who washes, he sits down, he eats a meal, and then he neglects to bench. When does he remember? An hour and a half later. An hour and a half later, he remembers that he didn't bench. What jogged his memory? He's hungry. Guy realizes he's hungry. Oh, wow. How long is it since I ate breakfast? Wow, it's 2.5 hours since I ate breakfast. What did I have for breakfast this morning? Oh, I had an omelet, 2 slices of bread. Wait a second, I never benched. So could he bench now? He'll say to himself, okay, I'll bench now, and that'll be my benching on breakfast, and now I'm going to wash and I'm going to eat lunch. No, the halach is he can't do that. Why? Because since it's already after the amount of time, shiur equal, the food has already been digested, so the benefit of breakfast is already gone. If the benefit of breakfast is gone, you can no longer bench on breakfast. Now, okay, so you'll wash, you'll eat lunch, you'll bench after lunch. But the benching on breakfast is already gone. Says the Shari Tshuva, same thing over here. You used the Beis HaKisei, you forgot to make an Asher Yotzar, you neglected to make an Asher Yotzar, you remember an hour and a half later when you need the Beis HaKisei again. You can't make an Asher Yotzar on the first use of the facilities. The benefit of that use of the facilities is gone. It's batal u'mavutal. Too late. Shuv lo yivarech. You can't make a berachah anymore. So again, the scenario that the Mishnah Berurah is addressing over here in Ois Katan Aleph, somebody used the facilities, he neglected to make an Asher Yotzar. He's allowed to make an Asher Yotzar even an hour later, even 2 hours later, even 3 hours later. That's what the Chavetz Chaim opened up Ois Katan Aleph on. There's no time limit, a strict time limit, to how long you have to make the Asher Yotzar. This berachas hashvach is different than other berachas hashvach, like the bracha on re'im, on thunder, or on lightning. Over there, you only have Tokidei Dibur. Here by Asher Yotzar, you have plenty of time. You have as much time as you want, as far as time. But what if you don't remember until you need to use the facilities again? There we have a machlokes to Pri Megadim and the Shari Tshuva. Pri Megadim says you need to use the facilities again. Before you use the facilities again, make an Asher Yotzar on the first time. Discharge your chiyuv of Asher Yotzar that was generated by the first use of the facilities. Then use the facilities, come out, make a second Asher Yotzar on the second time. Shari Tshuva says no. If you neglected to make an Asher Yotzar after the first time, and now you need the facilities again, too bad. Shuv lo yivarech. You lost the opportunity to make that Asher Yotzar. Now we're going to see when we get to Siv Gimel, it seems that the Shari Tshuva is being chaylik on the Mechaber. The Shari Tshuva is disagreeing with the Mechaber's psak in Siv Gimel. But let's get there. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Beis, Asher Yotzar. Kosav Rashal B'tshuva Siman Tzadik Zayin. Interesting shailos. Misha achal davar shechayv berachah achroina. Somebody ate something and now he has a chiyuv berachah achroina. He ate a Danish. He has a chiyuv to make an alamichya. V'shachach, and he forgot to make the alamichya. V'hitel mayim, and now he went to the Beis HaKisei. And he comes out of the Beis HaKisei, washes his hands, and he realized, okay, I gotta make an Asher Yotzar. All right? He's ready to make the Asher Yotzar, and he says, oh, wait a second. I also got to make an alamichya. I ate a Danish earlier. Now he has 2 brachas in front of him, right? So, you know, the classic date story. The guy comes in for a date. You want to give him a test. Kedim on brachas, you know, you put out a rimoin, and you put out te'enim, and you put out tamarim, and you put out a cookie, and an apple, and you see which one does he make the bracha on. So over here, too, this fellow has 2 chiyuvei bracha in front of him. He's got to make an alamichya on his Danish. He's also got to make an Asher Yotzar. Which bracha comes first? Says the Mishnah Berurah. So this was a tshuva by the Rashal. Somebody ate something that requires a bracha achrona. He forgot to make the bracha achrona. V'hitel mayim, and then he used the facilities. And before he recites the Asher Yotzar, he remembers that he's a chiv to make an alamichya or a bar nefashos. Which bracha does he make first? The Heishiv, the Rashal answers, the Asher Yotzar kaidim. The Asher Yotzar comes first. Why? To tadir. Because Asher Yotzar is generally more tadir than the need to make a bracha achrona. You go to the facilities many times throughout the day. So the Asher Yotzar is considered tadir, and we have the golden rule, tadir v'she'enei tadir kaidim. Now, what's interesting to me about this, by the way, is, if you think about the scenario that I gave you, Somebody was sitting by his desk, he made him a Zionist, and he ate a Danish. And he didn't make, unfortunately, an alamichi after he ate the Danish. Now he got up, he used the basic kisei. He comes out of the basic kisei, he's struggling, which bracha should he make first? Which chiyuv came first? The chiyuv of alamichi came first. He ate the Danish first. So says the Rashal, even though the chiyuv of alamichi came first, still in all, you make the asher yotzar first, because tadir v'sheina, tadir kaidem. Next, another very interesting shailos, which by the way is very negeya. Nowadays, if somebody takes a preventative colonoscopy, so before somebody takes a colonoscopy, they have to do a purge. Very, very uncomfortable. They have to do a purge. They load the poor patient full of Miralax and I forgot what the other stuff is called, the stool softener, Colace. They fill them up with Miramax and Colace, and as a consolation prize, they give you as much Gatorade as you want. And then what happens? You're running to the basic kisei constantly. What do you do with the asher yotzar? Do you make an asher yotzar every time you come out of the basic kisei? I mean, this poor patient has the runs. He's going to the basic kisei constantly, one after the other. So you keep making asher yotzar, asher yotzar, asher yotzar. This person is going to have an easy time of Meir Brachas that day. So says the Chavetz Chaim, Mi sheshoyse sam hamishalshal. If somebody is taking something like Miralax, something which is a sama mishalshal, something that, forgot what the medical term for it is, a laxative. If somebody's taking a heavy-duty laxative that's going to make him get the runs and keep on going to the basic kisei, the yesh bedaito mitchila lefanois habenei meyayim achetichla hazu amamehem. He has in mind when he takes this laxative, he knows right away from the outset that he's going to be running to the bathroom over and over and over again until he purges. That's what the words mean. Until all of the waste is out of his system. Now, it's interesting the way, by the way, the Mishnah Berurah words this. The Mishnah Berurah is not talking about somebody who's afflicted with diarrhea. You see, somebody who's afflicted with diarrhea does not know for certain how many times he's going to be running to the basic kisei. He runs to the basic kisei and he has a very loose bowel movement. It's very uncomfortable. He has diarrhea. Comes out. Why did he come out? Because he's done. Now, he knows maybe he's getting diarrhea. Maybe he's going to have to run again. But he doesn't know. Right? Could be yeah, could be no. He doesn't know. That's not the case over here. The case over here is somebody took a laxative. So like the Mishnah Berurah says, the yesh bedaito mitchila. He knows right away full well from the outset, right when he started that purge protocol, he knows the yesh bedaita betchila lefanis habnei meyayim achetichla azu amamihem. Alkein yesh omrim delo yavarech ki amach gemar hoitza. There is a shita that says that you don't make an asher yotzar until you're done. So you're running to the basic kisei. Eventually you're done. Eventually you're purged. Only then do you make the asher yotzar, because that's called that you're finished. Until then, it's one business. And on the other hand, there are those that say the yavarech b'chol pam, that you should make a bracha each time. V'haminig kisvara achrayna. The Chavetz Chaim says that the minig follows the latter opinion, that you do make a bracha of asher yotzar each time, with the following caveat. B'shilshul chazak, if somebody's mamish, just running constantly, shemargish shebiyad yitztarek lipanei shenis. Sometimes somebody gets up, he comes out of the basic kisei, but he doesn't even make it out of the door from the basic kisei. He knows he's going to have to go again. Also levarich. Then you're not allowed to make a bracha of asher yotzar, because it's like somebody who needs to use the basic kisei and he knows he can't restrain himself for 72 minutes, right? And he feels the need to use the basic kisei right now. He's not allowed to daven. So this person is not allowed to make a bracha. If as soon as you came out of the basic kisei, you're margish right away that you need the bathroom again, you're not allowed to make an asher yotzar. Okay, now we go to Ois Cut and Gimel. So the Mechaber told us that each time you use the basic kisei, you're going to make a bracha of asher yotzar, and you're going to wash your hands, but you're not going to make the bracha of al netilas yadayim. And the Mechaber also threw in that this halacha that you're not going to make a bracha of al netilas yadayim applies even if you're about to go to shul to daven mincha, or you're about to go back to the Beis Medrash to learn Torah, to Chazar the Daf, or Chazar the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah with your chavrusa. Still, you're going to wash your hands, but you're not going to make a berachah al netilas yadayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cotton gimel lehispalel miyad. Af tekayim alon b'simin reish lamed gimel sif beis. Even though we're going to see clearly later on, Bezos Hashem Yisbarach, in Siman reish lamed gimel sif beis, Dilatfilas mincha, that in preparation for davening mincha, v'chein la'arvis, or in preparation for davening ma'ariv, afilu eini yadei lehem shum lichloch, even if you're not certain that your hands are unclean, tzarech litol yadav. Even though the halacha is very clear that you do need to wash your hands in preparation of tefillah. So there's no question, if you just came out of the basic kisei, and you're going to daven mincha, you're going to daven ma'ariv, you certainly must wash your hands. The cholshkein kishas tzrachav, and that's certainly true if you enter the basic kisei, certainly for gdolim, certainly you have a chiyuv to wash your hands. Mikal makayim einay mevarech al netilas yadayim ela b'shachris. But the berachah of al netilas yadayim, that was only niskan in the morning when you're nasa kibrich hadasha like the shitas Rashba. It wasn't niskan to make the berachah of netilas yadayim during the day, even in preparation of davening, even if you know for sure that your hands are mulach, your hands are unclean, and even if you use the beis hakisei, you must wash. But a bracha was not niskan. Vayin b'Sefer Artzes Achayim, take a look at the Sefer Artzes Achayim, Shekosav, where he writes, the Das Roiv HaPaiskim, that it is the opinion of the majority of the Paiskim, Di'im Osa Tzrachav L'Gdoilim, that if somebody went to the Beis HaKisei for Gdoilim, he defecated, V'achakach Reitzel L'Hispalil, and right away he wants to go daven, Mevorech Al Netilas Yadayim. That's the sheet of the Artzes Achayim. Umikol Makayim, nevertheless, L'Chatchila, Ein Lozuz, B'Psak HaShulchan Aruch. Chavetz Chaim says we should not diverge from the psak of the Shulchan Aruch. Va'ayin b'sefer Maaseh Rav. Sif Eis Katan Daled in the Mishnah Berurah. The Ramah said that this halacha, that you do not make a bracha on the netilas yadayim after coming out of the Beis HaKisei, is true even if you know for certain that your hands are unclean. You used the Beis HaKisei and you used your hands to wipe yourself. You still do not make a bracha on the netilas yadayim. Says Ois Katan Daled sheshif sheif bahen, sheshif sheif bahen, ship shape, sheshif sheif bahen. You used your hands to wipe. Says the Mishnah Berurah hanitzaitzais shalmer raglayim, either to wipe away droplets of urine for huadin b'gdolim, or to wipe and clean yourself after gdolim. Shasa tzracha v'kinach. Still in all, you know your hands are mulachlachim, but you do not make a bracha of al netilas yadayim. Mechaber Sif Bey's second line down, Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Hitil mayim, somebody urinated, v'loy shif sheif, but he did not use his hands to wipe away droplets of urine. So let's understand, this person used the Beis HaKisei, he urinated, but he did not get his hands unclean. He didn't touch an unclean part of his body. He didn't wipe away any urine, so his hands are clean. Even though this person has to say a davar shebekdusha now, he has to say the shame, he has to make a bracha. Ein tzarech litol yadav. Strictly speaking, he has no chiyuv of netilas yadayim. Ella mishum nikius. The only need that he has to wash is a question of nikius, cleanliness. But his hands are not puzzle for a davar shebekdusha. Oy mishum hikain. Or also possibly that he has a chiyuv because of hikain. What's hikain? Hikain likras elikecha Yisrael, the pasuk says. Prepare yourself to greet your king, Klal Yisrael. Somebody goes to daven, there's a chiyuv of hikain. You have to do some kind of act of preparation. That happens to be what's partially behind the minig of a gartel. The minig of a gartel is to do something for hikain likras elikecha Yisrael. It's also to make a separation between the lave and the makam erva, but we don't really need that because we wear a belt or we have the waistband of pants or the waistband of the underwear. So you already have a separation between the lave and the erva. There's no problem of the lave seeing the makam erva. So why do you put on a gartel? Hikain likras alikecha Yisrael. That's an act of preparation. They say over that a good Litvak once asked Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zechat Tzadik Levracha, if you don't wear a gartel, how are you Mekayim Hikain? So Rabbi Yaakov said, button the jacket. You're wearing a jacket, generally speaking, you walk around with the jacket open. Buttoning the jacket is a more formal way of wearing the jacket. So before you daven Shemona Esrei, button the jacket, that's Hikain. That's how you Mekayim Hikain. So again, the Machaber says, somebody urinated, but he didn't get his hands unclean. Strictly speaking, there's no chiyuv of netilas yadayim. It's only a question of nikius or the need of hikan likras alikecha Yisrael. Now, before we go to the Mishnah Berurah, take a look at the biur halacha. Dibur amaschel hitel mayim v'loy shifshef. So the Machaber said, strictly speaking, there's no need for netilas yadayim. Says the biur halacha, sif zel mayri l'tfila. This sif is not talking about somebody who's getting ready to daven and just use the basic kisei. Tisham tzarich litarlaf beloy hitel mayim klal. Because in preparation for davening, you have to wash your hands even if you did not use the basic kisei. That's a halacha that we learned earlier. We learned earlier that in preparation for tefillah, the Mishnah Berurah told us that you have stam yodayim. Stam yodayim, you have to wash them before you go to tefillah. So here too, certainly somebody who urinated needs to wash his hands in preparation for tefillah. Okay, now let's go to the Mishnah Berurah's Katan Hay. Ela mishum, you only have a need to wash either because of nikias or because of hikai. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, vim ein loy bameh litoil. Therefore, if you don't have water to wash with, afal pikein tzarich levarach hashayotzar, you do have to make a bracha of hashayotzar. Because strictly speaking, you don't even have to wash your hands. Va'afilu shifshef. And even if you actually did wipe away droplets, or you did wipe yourself, so again, somebody urinated. Let's say somebody's out on the road, and he needed the facilities. The war on, he went into the bushes, he went into the trees, and he urinated, but he kept his hands clean. Strictly speaking, there's no need for the netilas yadayim. You go make an asher yotzar. Right after doing your business, you go ahead, you make an asher yotzar. Even if you did touch yourself, or you did wipe away droplets, or it was gedolim, and you wiped yourself, the Mishnah Berurah says here that you could use any midi de menaki if you don't have water. If you defecate, there's a chiyuv to go get water. But if you can't, you could use a midi de menaki, and you can make an asher yotzar. Okay, now we go to Sif Gimel. Now, Sif Gimel goes back to what we started to share with by Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Aleph, somebody who used the facilities and did not yet make an asher yotzar. And now he's using the facilities a second time. Now, my gut tells me that the Machaber is addressing a slightly different case. But let's see. Says the Machaber, Hitil Mayim. Somebody urinated. V'hisiach daitoi malahatel mayim. And now he's mesiach das, meaning he's done. He thinks he's done. So somebody goes, he urinates, and now he's finished. He straightens himself out, he does up his clothing and everything else, because he's done. V'achakach nimlach, and then he changes his mind. V'hitel mayim pabacheres, and now he goes again, right? That happens sometimes, especially as people get older and they don't completely empty. So somebody went, he urinated, and he's done. He's done. He's finished. So he tidies himself up. He does up his clothing. He starts to walk away. Suddenly he realizes, not done. Still have to go. So he goes again. So now, in essence, he used the facilities twice. What do you do? V'hitel mayim pamacheres, says the Mechaber, tzarich levarek shtei pa'amim asher yotzar. He has to make 2 asher yotzars. Now, some people are looking at the screen and they're saying 2 ashayotzars, well, yes. Basically, this person used the facilities twice. Each one generates a chiyuv of berachah. Each one generates a chiyuv of ashayotzar. So now you have 2 chiyuvim that you have to discharge. Now, if you imagine in your head the scenario, the way I just described it, it could even be that this person never had the ability to make the first ashayotzar because he was in the Beis HaKisei the whole time. He was in the Beis HaKisei. He went once. He thought he was done. He closed himself up. He tidied himself up. He turned around to leave. He realized, nope, not done. He never even was able to make the ashayotzar because he was in the Beis HaKisei the whole time. But now he went the second time. So he generated 2 chiyuvei berachah. He used the facilities twice. Each one came with it its own chiyuv berachah. Says the mechaber, okay, so you come out, you got to make 2 ashayotzars. Says the Mishnah Berurah, I've cut vav shtei pamim. You got to make 2 ashayotzars. Says the Mishnah Berurah, a very interesting thing. You're going to make 2 berachas? What? I mean, can't you cover both chiyuvim with 1 berachah? You got to make 2? Fine, I understand you went twice. So you generated 2 chiyuvim. You can't cover both needs with 1 ashayotzar. You got to say it twice? Says the Mishnah Berurah, well, we have a precedent for this. How about davening? Shem tov alo yispal shachris. What do you do if you didn't daven shachris? Somebody, whatever happened, I don't know, he didn't daven shachris. Right? Maybe it happens more by mincha. Somebody was busy the whole day. They just changed the clock, when in the fall. So now it was fall back, and shkia jumps up on you, and the guy looks out the window, and it's pitch black outside, and he says, Oy vey, I didn't daven mincha. So now he has a chiyuv. He has 2 chiyuvei tefillah. He has a chiyuv mincha, chiyuv ma'ariv. So what do? Do you daven 1 ma'ariv and say, I'll cover both chiyuvim with 1 shmona esrei? No. You daven a tashlumin, right? You daven 2 shmona esreis. The first shmona esrei is for ma'ariv. The second shmona esrei is for mincha. So you got a tashlumin, right? So here we have a precedent where you have 2 chiyuvim that you have to discharge. You have to discharge your chiyuv mincha. You have to discharge your chiyuv ma'ariv. What do? You daven twice. So, says the Mishnah Berurah, beautiful precedent for our problem here. You use the facilities twice. So far, and you have 2 chiyuvim to discharge. So, make 2 ashayotzars, and you'll discharge both. Let's see it inside. However, the Chavetz Chaim brings down from the back, the Shlad, the Magen Avram, the Gra, and others, many Achronim differ. They take issue with the psak of the Mechaber, the Sovereign, and they hold that this is not a dimion to Tefillah. The Shani Tefillah, shehi b'mkom carbon, v'shayich by tashlumin. Wait a second. Tefillah is based on karbonis, right? Shacharis, tamid shel shachar. Mincha, tamid shel bein arbaim. Ma'ariv, hektar chalavim ve'evarim al gabei mizbeach. By karbonis, the Torah Dirshu gives us the concept of tashlumin. Those of us who are learning Daf Yomi, we had that all that long ago. We had it in Chagiga, right? Lots of blether about it. That you have Rosh Hashanah also. That you have the idea of a tashlumin. Mishaloi chag b'yom rishon, chag kalachad kulai ub'yom shmini. So you have tashlumin for a carbon. Davening is based on karbonis. So yeah, the concept of tashlumin exists by tefillah. Because tefillah is b'makom carbon. But Masha Enkin, Masha Yotza, she berachas haydah. Masha Yotza is a berachas haydah. What does that have to do with a carbon? Yotza b'haydah achas al harbe pamim. So what? You got to say thank you. Somebody does you 1 favor, you say thank you. Somebody did you 2 favors, thank you. You said thank you. 1 thank you covers both. Kimisha achal shtei pamim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, these Achronim say, it's like somebody who's sitting down and eating a meal. He washes, he eats a meal, he eats the appetizer, he eats the main dish, he sits back, he schmoozes for half hour, he's full. Then he says, you know what, I'm going to have another one of those knishes. He eats another knish, then he sits back, then the dessert comes, he eats the dessert. Shemavarch berkas hamazanachas, I'll stay. You make one benching, you don't bench on that, bench on each course, you don't do that. So too over here, he used the facilities twice. He'll patter it up with 1 ashayotzar. So here we have this machlokes. Says the Mishnah Berurah v'yesh lahakol b'safek brachas. Our rule of thumb always is safek brachas lahakol. We always err on the side of caution, not to be moitzi shem shemayim levatala chas v'chalila. So we don't make a bracha, safek brachas lahakol. Ulechatchila nachan lizar levarek tekef asher yatzar achar hatala samayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, you should be very careful to always make the asher yatzar immediately after you come out of the Beis HaKisei. Don't get busy on the phone. Now, this psak of the Shulchan Aruch over here in Sif Gimel runs right back to what we started to share with. The Shari Tshuva in Ois Katan Aleph told us that if somebody used the facilities and he didn't make an Asher Yatzar, and now he needs to use the facilities a second time, he can no longer make an Asher Yatzar on the first use of the facilities. And we said it's because all of the hana, all of the benefit of the first use of the facilities is gone. So that Shari Tshuva definitely takes issue with this mechaber over here in Sif Gimel. After all, it's the same thing. The person used the facilities once, he thought it was done, then he used it again. So okay, he used it again, right? So the first time is gone. Shuv lo yavarich. And indeed, the Shari Tshuva says that. The Shari Tshuva takes issue with this psak of the mechaber. The Shari Tshuva differs with this psak of the mechaber. Halacha l'maisa was tutmin. Well, there's an Aruch HaShulchan over here. Aruch HaShulchan, his style, kedarka b'kodesh, he ties it up very, very neatly. And he says, Rabbi Mugdolim dachu psak zeh me'halacha. Der doichik the psak of the mechaber. Upasku she'ein levarach rak pamachas. You only might make one Asher Yatzar. V'chein aminig aposhit. He brings it down from the Bach, the Shla, the Magen Avram, the Gra, the Sharach Reinim. V'yoysim izeh. And even more than that, says the Aruch HaShulchan. Dim shachach milavarach Asher Yatzar v'nizkar. If you forgot to make an Asher Yatzar, and then you remembered later. And when did you remember? You only remembered when you have the need to use the Beis HaKisei again. This is the shailos that we started off the shiur on. The machlokes prima gadim and the Shari Tshuva. Ein loy levarech. Too late. He sides with the Shari Tshuva. You do not make an Asher Yatzar on the first use of the facilities anymore. Eliyasit tzrochav. Do your business. Use the facilities again. V'yavarech achakach bracha achas al shtein. And you're going to make one bracha that will hopefully cover both. So that's where we have the Mishnah Berurah is not really machriya. The Aruch HaShulchan is machriya. You neglected to make an Asher Yatzar. You remembered later on, and you already have the need to use the Beis HaKisei again. You only make one bracha. So to go use the facilities a second time, don't stop before you use the facilities a second time and make a bracha on the first one like the Pri Megadim. No. Too late. You can't make the bracha on the first one anymore. Go use the facilities for the second time, and when you come out, make one Asher Yatzar. The mechaber's case over here at Sif Gimel, same thing. You used the facilities, you thought you were done, then you realized you're not done, you went again, only one Asher Yatzar, says the Aruch HaShulchan. Now we're going to read Sif Daled. We don't have any Mishnah Berurah on, so it's only the mechaber. We'll close out the Siman. Says the mechaber, Ein shiur lahashtin mayim. There is no minimum shiur of urination to require an Asher Yatzar. Even one drop, you have a chiyuv of an Asher Yatzar. Why? Because if chas v'chalila, the urinary tract would close up and you wouldn't be able to expel that one drop that you need to expel, it would be difficult and uncomfortable. And therefore you have a chiyuv to give Shevach V'Idah to the Rebbeinu Shalom with an Asher Yatzar. That completes the beautiful Siman Zion. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The discussion of limud HaTorah should be begging against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshua Sefuras Parnasa Shidduchim to all those in need. The Rebbeinu Shalom should take care of us. We're living in very, very dangerous times. It's very scary what's going on in the world. To me, there's a very strange an eerie and scary similarity between what we're living through now and Purim. You know, by Purim, we talk about Achashverosh, who wanted to be geyser to chas v'chalila kill out all of the Yidden throughout the world. Now, we had a Hitler Yamach Shemai, who definitely had maybe such plans, but even when he was in power, he never really tried to put together plans to wipe out Yidden throughout the world, because he didn't even see that as being in his hands. Yes, by the Wannsee Conference, they drew up Rishoim, Gemurim, they drew up plans to wipe out Chas v'Chalila 11 million Yidden throughout Europe, but they didn't draw up plans for Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, for Yidden in the United States, at least not that I'm aware of, because they didn't even conceptualize yet having control of the entire world. Achashverosh spoke about wiping out the Yidden throughout the world, because he was such a all-encompassing king of the whole known world. This fellow in Russia, who's waging his war on Ukraine, has it in his power to wipe out the world. And that's a scary thought. But we know that he has absolutely no power. None. Whatsoever. He has no power. Nor does the fellow in the Oval Office. Nor does anybody sitting in any of the capitals, any of the world. Not a single one of them has an iota of power. Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shemoy. Nobody else has power. Leiv melachim v'sarim biyad Hashem. So in this time, I'm recording this on the night before Tainus Esther, this time of the Nahapachu, and a time when the Rebbeinu Shalom was Mekabel, the Tfilos of Klal Yisrael at the time of Purim. We have to take the opportunity to be mispal. People should be cognizant of the danger that they're in, and we have to make it our business, maybe make a Kabbalah on yourselves to better yourself in some way, shape, or form, and to take it upon ourselves to be mispal with the seriousness. Purim should not be a day of just laughter and joking around and clowning around and being drunk like a skunk. It should be a day of Torah. It should be a day of tefillah. We have to be mispal to the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom should help us. The Rebbeinu Shalom should take care of us. If we pay attention to the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Rebbeinu Shalom will pay attention to us. Everyone should have an easy time. Be well.